All right, basketball fans, let's dive right into it. Last night in the NBA, 5 games, and man, oh man, did we have some stories to tell,
Hmm.
some incredible performances last night.
Definitely some surprises.
Yeah, so we're going to break down all the action, and maybe we'll even have a few aha moments along the way. I think we had a little bit of everything last night, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean,
Yeah.
we saw these blowout wins, and then there were games that were super close, really went down to the wire.
Yeah,
It's just, it shows how unpredictable the NBA can be.
for sure. Speaking of unpredictable, how about that game in Atlanta?
Oh, man.
The Hawks just barely edged out the Grizzlies, 132 to 130. I mean, talk about a nail biter.
Yeah, seriously. It was back and forth the entire game.
Yeah.
You really couldn't predict who was going to come out on top. I think this game really shows the mental toughness of both teams, especially the Hawks. They were able to execute under so much pressure.
Right, it really came down to the final possession. And what stood out to me, it wasn't even Trey Young hitting the game winner this time. It was Karis LeVert. He sank that last-second layup after Dyson Daniels got the steal.
Yeah, clutch performance for sure.
Absolutely clutch.
LeVert's been playing so well lately. He seems like he's finally settled in with the Hawks and really understands his role on the team. And let's not forget about Daniels. That steal was huge. The Grizzlies were looking like they had the momentum, and then bam, he just changes everything.
Totally. And, even though the Grizzlies lost, Desmond Bane had himself a night, his very first triple-double. Really remarkable, even if they couldn't pull off the win.
Yeah, for sure. 35 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. That's incredible. Bane was just unstoppable on offense. He really showed how versatile he is and just how much he's grown as a player.
Absolutely. He's living up to all the hype and becoming a real star in this
Yeah.
league. Now, while we had that crazy finish in Atlanta, a couple of other teams decided to make a statement, I guess you could say. I mean, we're talking some serious blowouts.
Right, Detroit and Sacramento.
Yeah, exactly. And they showed their strengths, but in very different ways. So let's start with Detroit. I mean, they completely destroyed the Jazz 134 to 106. You remember how some people were doubting them early in the season?
Oh, yeah.
Well, look at them now.
No doubt. It was an offensive explosion from them. Cade Cunningham, he was just shy of a triple-double, 29 points, 9 assists, and 4 steals. But what I found really interesting was Oscar Thompson and Jalen Duren. They both shot perfectly from the field.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. I mean, that's just crazy.
It is. Thompson went 6 for 6, scored 17 points, and Duren was 8 for 8, with a double-double, 16 points, and 12 rebounds. It was like they couldn't miss. And it's not just about those two, though, right?
Yeah.
This shows a real shift in how Detroit's playing on offense.
Oh, for sure. Sharing the ball, finding open shots. They're playing with a confidence that, honestly, we haven't seen from them before. So definitely something to watch as we move forward.
Yeah, definitely. Now, over in Sacramento, they had a blowout of their own, but it was more of a defensive masterclass against the Mavericks. 122 to 98 was the final score. And they did all of this without their star center. It's a bonus.
Yeah, that's right.
It was really impressive. They completely shut down Dallas's offense, didn't give them any space to breathe. Valanciunas, he really stepped up big time with 15 points and 14 rebounds. But, the real story here is their defense, how they all played together on that end of the court.
They were all over Luka Doncic. I mean, making life incredibly difficult for him. Dallas, on the other hand, they were dealing with some key injuries, and that definitely played a part.
Oh, for sure. They just couldn't get into any kind of rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to give Sacramento credit. They took advantage of those weaknesses and stuck to their game plan. It worked perfectly.
It really did. So we've got a last-second thriller in Atlanta, some dominant performances from Detroit and Sacramento. But we're not done yet. We still have 2 more games to dig into, each one with its own story to tell.
Yep. And each one giving us more insight into how this NBA season is unfolding.
All right, so let's get to it.
It's amazing how just one player can, totally change a team's energy.
Right.
Like Cade Cunningham, the way he just kind of took over that game against the Jazz.
He was incredible, like a one-man show out there. 29 points, 9 assists, 4 steals. It wasn't even just about the scoring, though. He was setting up his teammates, making things happen, and then causing all sorts of trouble for the Jazz on defense.
I was like, he's just so much more mature now. Remember earlier this season, some people were like, can he really be the leader of this team? And I think he's answered those questions.
Oh, absolutely. He's leading by example, that's for sure. And speaking of stepping up, how about Oscar Thompson and Jalen Duren? Perfect shooting nights from both of them.
Yeah. I mean, how often do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Especially from young guys.
Not very
Well,
often.
It shows you how much they're buying into the system in Detroit, how much confidence they have. Thompson, 6 for 6 from the field, 17 points. Duren, 8 for 8, a double-double, 16 points and 12 rebounds. It's like they couldn't miss.
Hmm.
And I think this is a sign of something bigger happening in Detroit.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, it's not just those two guys having a hot night. It's the whole team clicking on offense. They're moving the ball, finding the open man. It's fun to watch.
Definitely. Now let's switch gears for a second. Over in Sacramento, Jonas Valanciunas, he had a huge night with Sabonis out.
Oh, yeah, he really stepped up.
15 points and 14 rebounds, that's what the Kings needed from him. He was just a force down low, fighting for every rebound, protecting the basket. It really shows his value to this team.
Absolutely. He can do so much more than just score. He understands the game and knows how to impact it in different ways. And, it also says a lot about the Kings having a guy like him ready to go when Sabonis is out.
Right. That depth is so important. You need guys who can step up when their number is called.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, back to Atlanta for a second. We have to talk about Karis LeVert. I mean, that game-winning shot was incredible.
So clutch, like ice in his vein.
No hesitation, just saw the opening and went for it. And we have to give Dyson Daniels some love, too. That steal was a game changer.
Yeah, sometimes it's those little plays, those hustle plays that really make the difference.
Totally. And even though Memphis lost, you have to give Desmond Bane credit. He had a triple-double.
Oh yeah, 35 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. He was just unstoppable, doing it all on offense. Really showed what he's capable of.
He's something special, that's for sure. Now let's head over to OKC. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander just keeps impressing.
Oh yeah, he's been incredible all season.
He was unstoppable against Houston, dropping buckets from everywhere, finding his teammates for open shots. He's become such a complete player.
And he does it all so quietly. He's not out there yelling and screaming. He just goes about his business and gets the job done.
He leads by example. Alperen Sengun had a good game for Houston, 30 points and 10 rebounds, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, Sengun, another young guy with a ton of potential. Houston might have lost, but they've got a good one in them.
Definitely. Okay, last but not least, Bam Adebayo had a historic night in Miami.
Franchise record for double-doubles. That's pretty amazing.
He was all over the place, grabbing rebounds, scoring around the basket, and it's not just this one game. He's been doing it all season.
Yeah, he's Mr. Double-Double at this point. But it's not just the stats, right? It's the way he impacts the game on both ends of the floor. He's the anchor of their defense, and then he turns around and leads the offense.
Yeah, you can say that again. He's the heart and soul of that Miami team. When you see performances like this from all these different players, it really makes you appreciate how much talent is in the NBA right now.
It's a great time to be a fan, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's not even just the talent. It's how these guys are, changing the whole league. Look at OKC, look at Detroit. A year or two ago, they were rebuilding, and now...
Yeah, now they're contenders.
Exactly, and I think it's because these young players, they're just not afraid of anything. They're hungry, they want to win, and they're not intimidated by the big moments.
And it's making things really interesting. The playoff race is wide open this year. We've got these unexpected teams coming up, and the teams that are usually at the top, they're having to fight for every win.
No doubt about it. It feels like any team can beat anyone on any given night. So as we get closer to the playoffs, what are you keeping an eye on? What are you most interested in?
Well, for me, it's the seeding,
Yeah.
In both conferences, teams are battling for position, trying to get home court advantage, and avoid those play-in games, because that can make a huge difference come playoff time.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's the whole thing about peaking at the right time. Some teams are getting hot now, some are struggling to find their rhythm. Which teams can keep that momentum going into the playoffs?
That's the big question, right? And that's why these last few weeks of the season are so important. Coaches are figuring out their lineups, making adjustments, trying to build that chemistry that you need to win in the playoffs.
It's like a chess match out there with coaches trying to outsmart each other and players giving it their all. And then you've got all these individual stories happening too. Guys chasing records, rookies exceeding expectations, veterans proving they can still play at a high level.
It's all happening at once. And for the teams that are right on the edge of making the playoffs, every game is a must-win. The pressure is on, and that's when you really see what these guys are made of.
Absolutely. Those high-pressure games, they reveal a lot about a player, about a team. Speaking of high pressure, how about that Hawks-Grizzlies game again?
Oh, man. Could have gone either way, right down to the wire.
It makes you wonder, with all these close games, could this be the year we see a big upset in the playoffs?
It's definitely possible. With the talent level in the league right now and how competitive it is, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lower seed make a deep run.
That's what makes the NBA so fun. You just never know what's going to happen. All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to hear from you, the listeners. What are your predictions for the rest of the season? Which teams are going to rise to the occasion? Who's going to fall short? Keep an eye on those young stars, the veteran leaders, the teams that are playing with a sense of urgency, because the NBA playoffs are just around the corner, and we can't wait to see how it all plays out. Thanks for joining us.